where do you start, like, with it? You know, how?
I think you've got to establish where, you've got to take a temperature check, haven't you? You've got to look at your business more closely, and you've got to ask the questions. And that's what it comes down to, because too often the leadership in businesses make judgments based on how they feel. And actually, if you know, and so many places have pulse surveys, they have employee engagement surveys, they have so many different things. Just use something to ask the question. If you come back with results that don't match how you feel, we said earlier about how you can, you know, think about how many times do people ask questions, how many times do people push back on things, how many times do people come with really great creative ideas. If you're not seeing enough of that in your organization, ask the questions, but bear in mind that if there's a real lack of psychological safety, you may not get the honest answers. So maybe that's the beginning. Maybe the beginning is you've got to be more open. You've got to start creating those relationships and making sure that your leadership team is coming from the right place with that curiosity, with the right intention, and making sure that they are going out, that they're all on board, because there may be some of them that don't believe that this is necessary. Make sure they're on board, get them to start cascading that down through the business, and it's got to come from the top, because it won't last. And you've got to change as a leader or owner or team manager, whatever level you're doing this at, you've got to go first. And it's, if you're not feeling psychologically safe, that can be a really scary thing to do.
So let's just say I'm a member of a team without nobody reports to me. Obviously I have a job to do, but I feel like I'm in an unsafe environment as such. So I don't feel comfortable raising my hand, and I don't feel comfortable asking for help or admitting I don't know something. How do I cope, and how do I manage?
That's a really good question. I see my eyes are going all over the place. My brain's going, oh my God. I think it is thinking about, is there anybody that you trust in that organization? Is that, you know, do you have an HR person or an HR team that you can talk to, that you can say how you feel? Because it might not be the entire organization, it might be just the part that you're in. I think some of it is, if you have those conversations and don't feel that anything's going to change, for me, and now may not be the right time, but I think is potentially, this is absolutely not the right environment. Depending on the size of your organization, are you going to be able to shift the culture of that organization? If you think you can impact and make a difference, then, and you're confident and comfortable enough to do that, maybe start having those conversations. If you're not, then I think it's, you know, the brutal thing is, if this is not an organization that's values don't match yours, is start to think about, what do I want in an organization that I work for? And I think it's becoming much more important to people that they fit, that the values fit, that they match, because we do spend so much time at work, especially when we are literally living at work. Yes, it's got to be the right place, hasn't it? You know, life is too short.
Oh yeah, this week or last week, these juniors at Goldman Sachs, they outed what it was like to work where they work. Now, it was 13 of them, probably out of a much bigger cohort or whatever, but they basically aired all of this dirty laundry in public. And I suppose there's a couple of ways you can look at it. That obviously, you know, it's better to try and deal with stuff in-house, but also there's conditions that they are living through that people shouldn't have to. like, for example, I'm just going to, some of them were incredible, some of the statistics or whatever. And even though it's only 13 of them, you know, 92% of them said that they're shunned or ignored in meetings. 58% of them were blamed without any justification. 83% of them have excessive micromanaging. And I think what I think from this is, if you prorata that out to organizations across the country or the world, you're going to find those conditions everywhere.
Yeah.
And I suppose if that's your first job, then no, you should not have to put up with that. And I think the problem is we become institutionalized very often, and we let the small stuff that kind of niggles at us, we start to ignore it and become conditioned to that being okay. So maybe being ignored in a meeting we can handle, but where do you draw the line? And then do you turn into that type of person as well?
I think a lot of people do, because I think that's how cultures perpetuate, isn't it? Is that the people who find they really can't tolerate that environment will leave and go and find something else. The ones who thrive in that environment, because there are those people, will just race ahead. And then there's those other people who make almost a conscious decision to sacrifice their soul to keep going. And the only way that you can thrive and succeed in those environments is to take on some of those behaviors and some of those values. And I think it's about how you as an individual are prepared to live your life. And it, like you say, if that's your first job, what an awful low bar you're creating for somebody. These are the people who wake up the day after they retire and realize that they wanted to be an artist, or they wanted to go and work in a startup, or they, but they've just, because you get on that treadmill and realize that once your income and your expenses start to get a little bit too close together, it's very, very difficult, especially in those types of environments where salaries are extremely high and bonuses are ridiculous, and all of that. If you start to live to that lifestyle, it's very, very difficult to take yourself out of that. And I think that's where you've got to make that choice for yourself in those early days of what's more important to me. Is it my sanity and my mental well-being, or is it the financial? And yes, there are people that have a balance of both, of course there are, but that sounds like hell on earth,
doesn't it? I mean, like, you shouldn't have to tolerate those kind of conditions at all, anywhere you work, no matter what you're being paid. I mean, I don't think money compensates for crap.
And did you see the headline I saw said that they're going to give them Saturdays off?
Oh, bless. Isn't that lovely?
Isn't it? Yeah. Too knackered to do anything, but
no, I mean, it's not wrong. It's not, it is wrong. But another example of the psychological safety going really wrong is Boeing 737 Dreamliners falling out of the sky. Because once they started looking into that, they discovered that plant in South Carolina, that people were just being pushed towards unrealistic deadlines, and were afraid to raise their hand when anything went wrong. And I mean, that is a bit of an extreme example.
Just because the environments that, because you are, hospitals are one of the worst places for that, because some hospitals and some doctors' attitudes towards nurses are just appalling, and the way that they treat them, and that is life or death. That is somebody's life is at risk on there. But it's that bit of in a corporate environment, just because somebody's life is not on the line does not mean that environment is any more acceptable than that. And actually, that as an example of, if every single one of your products or services was a dreamliner, because how many environments do, it's all about cost cutting. It's all about everybody works in any environment and creates their own little ways around things. And in most environments, it isn't life or death. But it has such a toll on individuals' health and well-being that fundamentally it could lead to life or death. For, not necessarily on those numbers, but on those individuals. There was the cases of through COVID the last year where people who've lost their jobs and have then committed suicide because they can't, they don't know what to do next. They don't know where to turn. They can't get another job. They're letting their family down. All of those things come from places where those individuals, whether it's, having been shoved out of that job for whatever reason, they then are in a place of extreme psychological unsafety. And this is the level to which businesses have got to start realizing that every action that they take on a day-to-day basis does impact people, and it impacts. And if organizations put as much time, effort, and interest into understanding their people as they do into understanding their customers, because customer experience has been a massive thing over the last 10, 15 years. It's all about, let's deliver everything our customer wants right now, immediately, before they even know they want it. Just 1/10 of that budget and effort and thought into, what do my employees need? What do they want? How soon can we get it to them? Let's give them that before they even realize they need it. That shifts your customer experience way more.
But it's also, how are my staff being treated? Not even just what do they need, but if I look across the organization, is every single manager or director or leader or team leader in the business or colleague treating other ones with the right amount of respect, curiosity, openness, all the nice things we've been talking about? And I say nice, I shouldn't say that. I mean, they're the
fundamental.
Yeah, that allow you to be yourself at work, to bring your best self to work. And, you'll hear people talking about bringing yourself to work, your full self to work. And it's like, well, I don't want to be myself at work. No, I don't mean your home self. I mean that that you are free to do your best work. And you're only ever free to kind of go in that flow state at work. And you're not going to reach that every day, and depending on what you're working in. But if you feel supported and you feel challenged, and that somebody's going to take what you say seriously and engage with you in a conversation about it, there's not really a lot to ask. I think that's the thing.